Has anyone in this room ever been stung by a bee? Not a wasp or a hornet, but a bee. Raise your hand if you have. Well, I'm guessing that whoever has indeed been stung by a bee will consider them to be obnoxious little pests with stingers with the sole purpose to harm people. Well, that definition isn't true unless you're talking about a hornet. Bees are actually some of nature's most important little workers, and the job they do every day is not only important for us, but for the entire planet. Bees, for example, pollinate around 1/3 of all the crops that we eat, and they're responsible for around $30 billion worth of crops in a year. Those are huge numbers for such miniature critters. Bees are not only fundamental pillars of our agriculture and economy, but they are also fundamental pillars of the entire planet, since pretty much every ecosystem and every environment is sustained by the bees. I mean, the reason there is such a biodiversity with so many different plants and flowers and vibrant colors is all thanks to the bees' hard work. Now, you might understand how important bees are to us in the entire planet. Bees, however, are disappearing at an alarming rate, and this fact isn't getting enough media coverage. Since 2006, an abnormal phenomenon called colony collapse disorder, or CCD for short, started to happen. Now, colony collapse disorder is pretty much a phenomenon where an entire colony of bees either disappears or dies suddenly in a really short time. I mean, it can even happen during the span of a single night. Now, the true cause of the CCD is still unknown, yet many experts hypothesize that the cause might be a stress that the colony is undergoing. Now, this stress could be linked to various events. For example, varroa destructors. Varroa destructors are mites that can only reproduce in a hive, and they spread really quickly. They attach themselves on the larvae and the bees, sucking the life out of them. Sounds like a horror movie, right? There is also the cause, since many flower meadows are getting replaced by industrial crops. Now, with no flowers, if the flowers get replaced, the bees will have no more flowers to pollinate, and they will have no more nectar. They need nectar to produce honey, which they use. Which they eat. It is their primary food source. So without honey, they will starve. So they are pretty much forced to evacuate the hive. Now, this reasoning of evacuating a hive could be also applied to a varroa destructor situation, where if there is an epidemic of varroa destructor, the bees would be forced to evacuate the hive. Now, another cause of this stress could be pesticides. Now, pesticides are usually used to remove sap-sucking insects like aphids that harm crops. However, pesticides not only harm the crops more than the pests do, ironically, but they also harm innocent animals, including bees. Now, not only do bees get intoxicated by the pesticide, by the toxins and the pesticide, but their nervous system, which is really complex, they get confused. They have a really complex nervous system to allow them to remember where their hive is, so that they can go back home. If their nervous system is confused, they could wind up getting lost and die. The bees also leave scent trails. They leave trails of scent, which they use to indicate to their colleagues where flowers full of pollen and nectar are. So if the pesticides mix with those scent trails, many bees could wind up either dying or getting lost. There is also the problem of invasive species like ants and hornets that raid hives and eat the honey, the larvae, and the bees. An example is the giant Asian hornet, also known as the murder hornet, which is becoming an invasive species even in the US. Now in May 2020, it's becoming a problem for the entire world. And they not only do they love killing bees, but they are also really dangerous to humans. Now, you may be convinced of how important bees are to us and the entire planet, and also of how doomed they are. I mean, they have pretty much been picked on by the entire universe. Well, let's not give up hope. There is actually a chance for us to save our beloved bees. However, it requires a collaboration of everyone, and we need to take action immediately. Now, something that many people could try to do would be to have a garden or a balcony full of flowers, either in vases or simply in the ground. It depends if you have a garden or a balcony. I mean, this will really help bees with pollination, and it would also help to have a regulated amount of parasitic plants like weeds and dandelions, since they attract various pollinators. It is also really important for us, obviously, to, the bees, we should try to introduce them to the city, and not only because the city has more biodiversity than the countryside, surprisingly, but the smog in cities like Milan, that has a lot of smog, the smog here is still not strong enough to kill the bees under their full lifespan. Now, we should also try to ban pesticides, since they are cruel not only to our own crops, but also to innocent bees. And we should try using natural remedies, like, there are natural substitutes to pesticides which do not harm the crops. For example, ladybugs or ducks. A ladybug can eat around 5,000 aphids in its whole lifetime. Also, for the problems, for example, varroa mites, they can easily be removed using natural remedies. And exterminators can take care of invasive species like ants and hornets. However, they require our support. We should support exterminators more for the important job they do. For our homes. They protect us from invasive species. Now, it is really important for us to save our beloved bees. Since pretty much the entire world, our diets, our economies, and pretty much nearly every living thing on this planet is pretty much sustained by bees. And we're pretty much at the mercy of the bees. If bees were to die, we would be next. As the genius Albert Einstein once said, if the bee were to disappear off the face of the earth, man would only have 4 years left to live. Now, the biggest problem of this, of the bee extinction is the fact that it isn't getting enough media coverage. And people don't know, too many people are unaware of the problem that the bees are undergoing, how they are disappearing, and how we will be doomed if they all go extinct. In this era, in this period where people are realizing how our world is being consumed by global warming, pollution, extinction of all the animals, etc., people need to realize that global warming isn't the only thing consuming our world. Bee extinction is really important, and we should concentrate on it more. People should realize more how important this situation is. Well, thank you for attending my talk, and goodbye. And always be helpful and thankful to bees.